Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Scrimps and today I'm going to show you the Lightning Strike Trickster build that I've been able to put together in my first ever HCSSF run. I'm going to show you some gameplay footage and then we're going to dive into the POB and discuss some of the specific choices that I've made. Now, since this isn't a build that I personally came up with, I'm not going to call this a guide per se, but I have been doing a lot of tinkering, so if you ever have any questions, you can always pop on over to my stream at twitch.tv/Scrimps and I would be more than happy to go over that with you. Let's get to it.
The prize piece comes to join
my collection. Pain will be returned tenfold. Space aligns. Behold my connection.
I will have what I want. Death will not be an escape.
Top, left, top.
Scurry, scurry. Yes, why?
Resistance will be punished. Controls. Scurry, scurry.
My irritation is growing. Death will not be an escape.
Top, left, right, top, right, top,
Scurry, scurry.
top, left, right, top, right, top.
Stop resisting. Reality ends. Punishment inescapable.
Toy. Stand still. This will not be an escape.
Top, right, top, right, top, right,
Scurry, scurry.
top, right, top, right, top, right.
Take this. Stand still.
Okay.
Opening fire!
Ooh.
Toy mustn't.
Kill that stranger! Nothingness approaches. Keep running. Ah. A sliver of what my home feels like. The Wild One's power is mine! Rohan, why did you let us? I wanted to possess.
Be nice to me. Hey. Boo.
Private show. Struggle or strangle. Time to make mistakes. I'm and this. Twin terrors.
Nice. Alright. Alright, so now that we've shown you some gameplay, we're going to go ahead and get into the build. But before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out to Everseen, streams over at twitch.tv/EverseenTTV. He was a huge help to me in getting this build off the ground, gave me some pointers and good ideas and directions to take the tree in. Super nice guy too, so if you haven't checked out his stream, please do so. And anyways, let's get into the actual build here. So since we're playing hardcore, we are trying to make ourselves absolutely as tanky as possible. And we're pretty deep into the progression at this point. You see, we've got 90 max all res, we've got our suppression capped, we've got quite large max hits. Now this is with all of our stuff up. So if you see over here, we've got sand stance, we've got Arctic armor, and we'll see over here in the skills. So here's our main links. We've got pretty standard supports: multi-strike, lightning pen, volatility, returning projectiles, and energy leech. I have been hunting down awakened versions of at least these two gems. Awakened LE damage with attacks would also be a good replacement for lightning penetration. So any one of those three would be an amazing hit, but unfortunately, Maven doesn't like us too much. Now, as far as some of our other skills, our main aura setup here is Discipline, Vol Haste, and Arctic Armor, and then we also have Flesh and Stone by itself over in the boots. You can run Grace, but in our situation, I really wanted to run Flesh and Stone. I didn't have enough to run Grace as well, and with the Mage Blood that we were lucky enough to drop early in our progression, we're able to get our evasion high enough that we don't necessarily need Grace. So with this, I was able to get quite a bit more like actual damage reduction to help us out there. We're also using Leap Slam as a movement skill. We've got 4 to 5 faster attacks in there, and we're linking Smite as well. That'll give us that little extra aura buff, as well as another attack that we can use to help get the fortification up in certain encounters. I have Immortal Call in my weapon with cast when damage taken, Inspiration just to keep the cast down. We're also running Sniper's Mark as our only curse. Now, if you have Anathema, that's another option, and you can run like a Trigger Helm with a bunch of extra curses in it. I don't have Anathema on this run, and so this is the option that I decided to go with. Now, we've got Flesh and Stone in the boots separate from Sniper's Mark, because with Inspiration in, that would raise our reservation cost on Flesh and Stone. Another option you have here is you could run an Enlighten instead of Inspiration. What this is going to do is raise the cost of your Sniper's Mark, but also raise your total mana pool. I left it the way it is because we have 182 unreserved mana already, so I don't really need to add more to the mana pool. And keeping Sniper's Mark cost down a little lower seemed like the better choice, but either one of those would be a good option. Finally, to round out our skills, we've got Enduring Cry, Flame Dash, and Frost Shield over in our shield. Enduring Cry and Frost Shield are just to further augment our defenses, and Flame Dash is our main movement skill, with Leap Slam being our secondary movement skill that also gives us some fortification when we're mapping. Moving on to our gear, we've got Ephemeral Edge as our weapon. That's the thing that makes the entire build work in the first place. Resolute Technique is incredible on there, but you don't need it necessarily. It just saves you some points on the tree, and you don't have to run Precision. I don't have the Harvest Enchant on there because I got this really early, and in my excitement, I just ran straight into the temple and double corrupted it and got really lucky. I'm going to be going back and trying to get a better one with the Harvest Enchant, and if we're super lucky, maybe we get the attack speed corrupt as well as the Resolute Technique. All of our armor pieces were made using the Recombinator, so we've got 5 tier 1 mods on each of them. Most of them have 3 tier 1 energy shield mods, along with a tier 1 intelligence and something else. We've got all max res on our shield, we've got our tier 1 res on our helmet, we've got spell suppression on our chest, we've got attack speed on our gloves, and our boots. These were the ones that I was a little bit of a settle with, but I do have a cool pair of boots that I'll show you guys in a second that I plan on working and see if we can get into the build. Voice of the Storm seems like just the best amulet you could possibly have for the build. I messed around with putting in a Simplex and a Focus that had a completely unattainable 2x reflecting mist on them, and they still didn't beat this amulet, so I don't think you're going to do any better than this. We're using Arcane Focus as our anoint, but other options are Veteran's Wrath for really consistent rage generation. We were getting our rage off of our gloves, and Arcane Focus gives you a pretty large amount of energy shield, so I've decided to stick with that. For the rings, we're using 2 Crusader rings that have flat energy shield, Crusader percent energy shield, and evasion, so that we can have this evasion and energy shield mastery over here. This is incredibly powerful. Now, these are actually super easy to craft too. You can essentially hit them with an Essence of Woe until you get one of the other defense mods, and then you can prefixes can't be changed, reforge defense, and you're guaranteed to get the other one. A little bit better if the mod you're looking for is evasion, since you don't really need evasion to be tier 1, but you really want the Crusader mod to be tier 1, but that's an option that you can take there. This ring I also made with the Recombinator, so we were able to recomb 5 tier 1 mods onto that. This one I just crafted using the method with the essence that I just mentioned a second ago. Now, we also got the Veiled Orb on there to get the minimum endurance charge and the chance to gain endurance charge on kill. This just means that I don't have to constantly be pressing Enduring Cry to have 3 endurance charges up. And then this one, we've got the minimum endurance charge crafted on as well. Mage Blood, super lucky. You don't actually need it. You can go with a Crusader Crystal Belt, and that would be a pretty good option as well. But obviously, if if you're lucky enough to have a Mage Blood, you're going to use the Mage Blood. If you don't have a Mage Blood, you're probably not using a Tincture because you're probably going to use Balbala on the Brutal Restraint. Since we have Mage Blood, we're using a Lethal Pride instead, and we have the slot open for a Tincture. I think that you're personally best using the Penetration, but you could also use attack speed on here, which would give you some insane attack speed as well as just higher leech and stuff like that. For our flask choices, we've got a Silver Flask, so we can get Onslaught. We've got Curse on there, so we're completely Curse immune. And then we're running all 3 LE Flasks, so we can get a bunch of resistances and a bunch of max res as well. Evasion on this one is huge amount of evasion, really good for Ghost Dance. We've got Avoid Being Shocked on here. If we're lucky enough to drop a Storm Shroud, this can turn into, all elemental ailment avoidance. But for now, just being able to avoid shock and hardcore is pretty big. And then we deal with Chill using the boots, and we deal with Freeze using Arctic Armor. If you don't use Arctic Armor, you could also just use a Brine King Pantheon to deal with Freeze. Finally, we've got the stun immunity on here. Just great because, getting stunned sucks. Who wants to get stunned? Finally, we'll go ahead and look at our jewels here. We've got 3 max res jewels, which along with the 2 that we get from our shield, everything we get from our flasks, and 2 that we get from our implicit on our chest rounds out our 90 max res. And so we've got this one right here, which is one that my mappers gave to me a couple of days ago. Pretty crazy hit. We've got this one, which was one that I rolled out of Harvest on and a synthesized jewel that I got from Heist. And then our clusters that we're using 3 clusters with 3 passives on the attack damage while holding a shield. The important note here is to get Veteran Defender. You also want to have at least 1 Fuel the Fight, and then the rest you're best with Feed the Fury being the other one, but we don't have another one with Feed the Fury, so we're running 2 Fuel the Fight right now. We also have a medium cluster with Aerodynamics and Repeater. If you're bossing, you could swap this out for one with Repeater and Eye to Eye, which would give you higher damage. The Pierce we have because we're only running Pierce on our gloves and through the cluster. If you don't want to run this, you could also grab some Pierce over here, and then you get an extra Mastery to further fuel Polymath. We're also, like I said, we're running Lethal Pride. Important things to get on Lethal Pride, just any amount of double damage is going to be pretty big. If you get Rage Generation on there, that's also good. That'll free up either your Anoint slot or your Glove implicit to be able to do something else, but I haven't found one of those just yet. I also have a double damage here, which we're not always running that, but we'll go over that later when we go over the tree. Finally, for the Light of Meaning, we've got lightning damage currently. It would be a little bit better to have Energy Shield. As you see here, it's actually less damage, but we gain almost 1700 energy shield, which would be pretty big, but the lightning damage one is pretty good as well. So you just get those out of Ritual, and if you get either one of those, you'll be pretty happy with it. Now you're going to want to run that in this slot over here because you're going to have the most value out of it. You can't run your Timeless Jewel up here because you need Ghost Dance, and that would turn your keystone there into something else. All right, we've gone over the skills. We've gone over the gear. Let's go ahead and go over the tree real quick. So I've got 2 different versions of the tree that are almost identical. We've got our mapping tree and we've got our bossing tree. I mentioned this earlier when I mentioned the Timeless Jewel, but I removed these 2 nodes over here and this over here that gives me a little bit extra evasion and some phasing in mapping in favor of taking these 3 points. This gives us better tincture uptime, better tincture effectiveness, and I have a second double damage node there. So if you see, look, we're at 16.5 in the bossing setup. We go over to the mapping setup and we drop down to just under 15. So it's a pretty substantial amount of damage we're getting there. But other than that, the trees are pretty much identical. You're going to want to get as many of these Tattoo the Hinokora Warrior as possible. If you notice, even replacing every single intelligence node that we still have 770 intelligence. These are going to give you roughly 1% more energy shield than the intelligence node by itself would. Sometimes you hit some weird breakpoints because of the increased intelligence and increased attributes on the chest. They're still worth doing every single time. Now, you'll notice here, we don't have Ghost Reaver. This is a pretty popular node, but I really, really like the Spellbreaker Wicked Ward synergy, and unless you're running Shav's Revelation, which I do have, but I don't want to run because it's only an additional 500 energy shield over the Crusader rings I already have, so I've opted to just forego Ghost Reaver entirely, and we get to keep the incredibly powerful synergy between Spellbreaker and Wicked Ward. We've got Influence over here. We're also getting some aura effectiveness down here with Leader of the Pack. We've got Precise Technique. This is absolutely massive, especially if you're already using Resolute Technique, but either way, you should still be running this. It's huge amount of damage, and you don't really care about critting anyway, especially if you've got Resolute Technique. It literally doesn't do anything. You see here, look at that. It's doing almost 4.7 million. That's adding for us. That would be like, look at that. That's insane how good this node is. And we've pathed down this way because we want to go ahead and grab Primeval Force over here as well, so we can get this Elemental Mastery for the Elemental inversion. Words are hard. We've got Mark over here. We've got Suppression over here, a little bit of Suppression over here. Now you see we're 6% over. So if I can find 3 tattoos, I can ditch this. And if I can find 3 more tattoos for a total of 6, then I can drop both of these points, and then it'll give me a couple extra points to play with somewhere else on the tree. Finally, we've got this over here to reduce the mana cost of our attacks and give us access to the 12% reservation efficiency mastery. For some other masteries, we've got Leech over here for 10% instant leech. We've got this. This mastery is not actually that good, but it does give us another mastery for polymath, and there's not really anything else we would rather do with the points, so we're taking that. One of the things that some other people do is they path down this way. If you want to do that, that's fine, but I feel like this way is just better because you get more intelligence, you get access to resourcefulness, which is a really powerful node. If you go down this way, you do get access to charisma as well as void barrier, which is in and of itself a very powerful node. So you can, this is really, I would play around with that, but this is the way that I landed on after having played around a lot with both of those options in the tree. And let's see what else we got. That's pretty much it. If you get another point, you can take point blank, but I would only do this for bossing, as it's not really going to be very good with return proj when you're doing mapping setups. I pretty much only need it for like uber bosses to really pump your damage up as high as it can possibly go. All right, so to wrap up the video, I'm just going to real quick go over a couple of the upgrades that I'm still eyeing for the build. I mentioned a boot upgrade earlier. I hit this fracture on a 28% quality base. It's already got good suffixes, so as we get Eldritch Chaos, as we get Wild Bristle Matrons, we're going to keep trying to work on these boots and see if we can't get them to be absolutely GG boots. But we will be losing the action speed implicit that we have over here because we'll need to use that implicit to finish off the chance to avoid being shocked. I think that's a small price to pay because it frees up an entire flask affix for us, but I'll have to play around with that and see how it goes. We could try to get better synth implicits, although the attack speed is pretty good. I would like to have energy shield on there instead. We've got triple veteran defender, and so we get a huge amount of energy shield from our shield, and that would be something that we could do. We could get an energy shield light a meeting. Like I said, it's a little bit less damage, but it's a lot more energy shield, probably worth it. I could try to make this ring a little bit better. I can try to get awakened gems in these 2 slots. Remember, multi-strike or lightning pen and awakened Ellie damage. All of those would be great hits for us. And getting a better ephemeral edge would be really sick, but that's something that's probably going to take me a little while. Finally, we can try to get some suppression tattoos so that we can free up a couple more points on the tree. And honestly, that's pretty much it for upgrades. I've pushed the build pretty far. There's definitely some room to min-max some things, but it's getting harder and harder to find them. And that just about does it for me. If you want to check out the POB or join my Discord, both of those will be in the description below. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments, or you can pop on over to my stream at twitch.tv/scrimps, live most days between 2 and 4 Eastern, generally going for at least 4 hours, but most days, let's be honest, it's probably more than that. Playing the game a lot. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Thank you guys so much for your time. Hope y'all are having a great time out there. Take care of yourselves. Peace.